Hello, and welcome back to the channel. This is Jimmy, and thank y'all for clicking on another video. Shooting this on the 31st, so not 100% sure on when this video might post. I might post it later on this evening. So I ran 5 miles this morning. I'm not sure how long I'm gonna walk, but probably a good mile and a half. So probably be another slightly longer of a video today. As we wrap up, 2024, 2024 was an interesting year for me for a couple different reasons. They kind of carried over, a little bit from 2023. I went back home to Cleveland for probably like the first time in 15, 20 years. Just thinking about all the things that I took away from my time in Cleveland. We spent some time on this channel talking about identity, and I would love this to share, some of how this is things I learned as a child translates to leadership, and how being a kind leader versus a nice leader is a significant difference. It can have a pretty big impact. It's funny because I still say, even though I haven't lived in Cleveland in 20 years, actually over 20 years at this point, moved away when I was 16, it's always been something really close to me, something I still identify with. When people ask me where I'm from, it'll always be East Cleveland. Big Browns fan. But I say all that to say, I spent a lot of time, most of my years in Cleveland. I was blessed to have the majority of my childhood with my grandparents. My grandma passed away when I was 14, and my grandpa passed away when I was 16, so a little bit older. And yeah, while I would have definitely appreciated and loved to have them around in my 20s and my 30s, or even now, I greatly appreciate the 16 years that I got a chance to spend with my grandpa and the 14 years I had to spend with my grandma. And granted, some of their lessons wasn't directly to me. I was able to learn a lot from seeing their life through a different lens. And I just had a lot of admiration for my grandpa. I actually spent a lot of time with him. We used to take the bus to downtown Cleveland quite often, and which was pretty awesome. We used to get a hot dog from the hot dog stand, and still to this day, those are still some of the best tasting hot dogs in the world. Getting one from a local vendor at a hot dog stand, but nothing beats it. I used to go down there and go to the bank with my grandpa. I remember him picking up his Social Security check and, going to the John Hancock building. We used to do that quite often, and we would get a hot dog on our way back, get on the bus. Then we would go grocery shopping, and that's where he, grocery shop for half the neighborhood. My grandpa was one of those individuals that a lot of people respected, really strong in his faith, and just, again, a kind individual. Not nice. Grandpa was still strong on his values and his faith. He used to read the Bible for hours every day. I remember him taking notes and, spending a lot of time in his room. But when he came out, he was always a man of action. Whether it was working in the garden, or again, like keeping the household running. And I was just really impressed because my grandpa had, come to find out, like 15 total kids. They were able to own 4 homes throughout East Cleveland. And I just think doing that in that day and age, he had to have a lot of confidence in himself. And I just think back what I got to learn about my grandpa. He was just really strong in his faith. So I got to spend a lot of time with him, and I was fortunate. We actually lived like in the house that was adjacent to their back door. So I used to be able to run across there all the time. And when grandma was cooking, hang out there. But I just learned a lot from how my grandpa carried himself, how he focused, how disciplined he was. And that helped me navigate a pretty tough area of Cleveland. I was fortunate not to get into a lot of altercations, because I think, very similar to my grandpa, I was pretty strong in my convictions and my values. And that's when I really learned that you attract what you vibrate around. I had a really close friend group, growing up, and I thought it was awesome that we were all who we are. And I think there was a level of respect that created that space for us to be who we are. And a lot of those things that I took with me as I started to enter the workforce was around like this confidence to be who I am while still being open to other perspectives and ideas. And I took something away from my grandparents. I took something away from all my friends, whether it was like how they approach something, or especially where I saw them being courageous when I was fearful. I had a lot of friends that went on to do some pretty cool things where they're performers or traveling all around, and they were able to do that in the music scene because they believed that they could, and they put in the work to be able to do that. And so one of the things that I learned about just navigating, that East Cleveland was when I led with kindness, good things always happen. Doors open, I earn respect. But when I tried to be tough and live up to, somebody else's expectations, or when I was so focused on like the social norms, where I feel like I was trying to blend my school world versus, my home and street life, those worlds didn't always align very well. So leading with a genuine curiosity at people and kindness has really gone a long way. And I never really understood this idea of like getting into bigger rooms. But when you're in bigger rooms, you can dream bigger. You understand what's possible. And growing up in East Cleveland, like the life that I dreamed about as a 14, 15-year-old kid, growing up in a small house with a large family, was to have a house with a lot of space. Right? I knew I wanted to work. And that's what I saw on all like the TV sitcoms. Dad was gone most of the day, came home, spent time with the kids, and hung out with the wife and went to sleep. And Lord behold, like that's the life that manifested. I do that stuff all the time. And I think when you hang around different people, my idea of like how I add value to an organization has definitely changed. And again, it starts from this place of being kind and curious about individuals. So I want to talk a little bit about the difference in being nice and kind as a leader. So I've worked for a really long time, and I've seen a lot of people really conflate these two. I've heard some people think that it's the expectation for the manager to be nice, and like, again, niceness is not a bad thing, but it's usually related to social norms. And I find that if you're always limiting yourself to nice standards, you might miss an opportunity to break the mode and bring convention and really innovate. Where I find that kindness puts a little bit more emphasis on the individual. And I like to think of two ways that this might show up, right? I was reading a book and they give a really good analogy to understand the difference between niceness and kindness. Niceness is holding the door for somebody that's walking behind you, because they're really close. And, it's just because, right? Going to do it as a social norm. Can have impact. It might not be genuine. Doesn't really matter. It's kind of like flow with the expectation. And I think kindness is, going out of your way to run an open door for a parent that's having a hard time navigating 3 kids. And I've seen to where some people just run around, open the door, and just to keep going like it's nothing and won't care that the person is struggling to get the door open. But I've seen also where a kind person that empathizes with that situation has went out of their way to run and grab that door because they can understand the struggle and let this going around just thinking about the human experience. And whatever you're leading, this was probably the biggest thing that helped me just coming from East Cleveland and watching the way my grandpa navigated. I used to always think that I had to be a subject matter expert at everything. I thought a lot about what my impact was, about what I did. I was always fast. I was a fast worker. I was a fast seller. And, I kept getting opportunities, and I thought it was because I was working hard. And nobody ever really told me it's because I was thoughtful and curious about the human experience. It was really being kind until about, I don't know, probably 10 years ago, that I really realized like that was the thing that was leading me so many opportunities. And now that I know that, how I can lean into it and define my leadership style with it. I always say I don't want anybody to ever feel bad in a conversation, but I'll have a tough conversation if I really feel that the words that I'm going to share are going to really help somebody. And maybe it's because I've been there before, but I think sometimes for me, as kindness is being willing to take somebody's heat and blowback, because I know the initial reactions and be like, well, who the heck do you think you are? And then be able to explain something and break it down to help them get unstuck. And when I've been able to do that for inspiring leaders or people that I've come across in my life, it is very, very cut fulfilling. Because like once you see it a certain way, you'll never unsee it again. I've been around people that, demonize all millionaires and billionaires because it's like, well, they can just help people. Why they don't do X, Y, and Z? And a lot of times, like what I've been learning is that a lot of the successful people are talking. We're just not always listening. And when I mean successful people, I'm not even talking about the ultra rich. But I am talking about the ultra rich because they might not be rich in wealth or money in that respect, but in other things, whether it's values, relationship, network, they might not have a lot in their bank account, but they have access to so much capital because how they vibrate and how they show up for others. And so that's, to me as a leader, I've had more doors open when I was focused less on my career and more on helping others get to where they want to go. It was almost like I was amplifying my impact, focusing on that work versus on trying to do the work that I thought was going to get me promoted. And whenever I was working on something specifically for me, like this thing is going to get me promoted, it's probably when I was doing some of the worst work of my life, the least impactful, or when I was becoming the most frustrated, because I stopped appreciating the journey. And at the end of the day, what I'm really passionate about is being able to help people make an impact and have that unlock. And you can do that in any business because a leader is not about always doing the work. It's about being in service of the people closest to the work. And if I can help an inspiring engineer, I know nothing about engineering, but I can help an engineer get unstuck. I can help an engineer find confidence. I can help an engineer walk through an innovative idea and give them the inspiration and share some knowledge on why they should try it. I can also inspire an engineer who might think something might not work to encourage them to try it so we can find out for sure, because I can demonstrate belief in them. And those are things that leaders can do if you're bought into the mission of what you're leading. And there's a lot of different ways to get bought in. I'm going to do a video about that. It's like how to shift to that leadership mindset. But for me, once I identify that the company I'm working for, my values align, it's about helping everybody do their best work to achieve our goals. And that's very rarely requires a high level of subject matter expertise about the work. Actually, I find that the less a leader know about the work, if they're curious, only if they're curious, those leaders actually excel in almost any environment. Because it's really understanding the human experience and what's getting in the way of the goal. And then making sure that everybody is still focused on the goal, not the small problems along the way. And that's why I keep using this word of like getting unstuck. Growing up in East Cleveland, again, like you didn't have the luxury of staying stuck for long, right? It's really easy to get stuck and get lost in what we're told a lot. I mean, being told that you're the product of your environment, I actually know what people mean, but that's actually a really dangerous concept because it takes away the fact that you're actually in control of your own outcomes, no matter where you start or where you are. And I think that's a really, really important concept, that if you're not surrounded by positive people, even in tough situations, you might find yourself looking outside of yourself for solutions. And really, it's all in here. And for me, that superpower is being kind. I am really curious in the human experience. I'm always trying to figure out how do we make things easier so we can spend less time on the thing and more time connecting with people, sharing ideas, hearing another person's perspective. In this channel, we're going to talk about personal growth. We're going to talk about some leadership lessons and quite a few topics. But to me, they're all connected. There's been moments in my life where, I thought I mastered a thing, and what that led to is me stopping working on myself. I stopped developing myself, and I became somebody who was just always pouring things out. But as I've gotten a lot older, and I'd probably say the last 5 years and going forward, I put a lot more focus around making myself more attractive, educating myself, picking up skills that's going to help me become a stronger leader, picking up things that's going to help me have different unlocks and be able to solve larger challenges and larger problems. And I've just really thought about my last 23 years of work experience, which I've had such an opportunity to learn from so many people. I've come across a ton of people. I've learned different buying habits, what's important, and I've been able to really just get a lot of data from interacting with people and seeing other people interact with people, and it's been a really enriching experience. But I know that kindness is extremely valuable in leadership and goes a long way, especially when it's authentic. And that's not about saying yes. Sometimes being kind is telling somebody no, because the journey is going to be so valuable for them, and you got to stay your ground. Good afternoon. Actually, a lot of times, telling someone no is the kinder action. But if it's really for the individual, well, there you go. And not to say that I always get it right, but I always operate from a place that I'm doing what's best for the individual. That's where my energy and focus is at. Because the next goal is, if I do that, we remove that thing, and they're going to excel because now they're in alignment. And if it's not the right work, it's just not the right work. And even that conversation, though hard, comes from a place of kindness, because I don't want anybody wasting any more time than they have to. Time is the only resource that we can't renew. Money, you don't know if the money you're making today is going to be half of what you're going to make in your lifetime or a fraction. But my time's my time. And if you're not doing great work because you don't love what you're doing, the most logical choice at that point is to do what you love. And I've had to have that conversation sometimes with folks, but I try to do it from a kind place. So just some food for thought, something I have been thinking about today as I was reflecting on wrapping up 2024. I am so looking forward to this coming year. In just a short amount of time, we hit 400 subscribers. So I'm going to have to buy that drone a lot sooner than I was anticipating, but that's a good problem to have. And I'm looking forward to see where we go from here. I've always said that there was no way in my mind this channel could be a failure. If this helped one person or impacted 2 people per video, that's more than what I was doing before I was just sitting home and not doing these. And if it impacts more, everything above that is a surplus. And I'm hoping that this coming year we're able to expand the conversation, invite a lot more guests up here, expand our topics. I like this channel to impact future leaders or anybody inspiring to have an impact on people, no matter what you do, whether you're a cashier at McDonald's or a manager at a McDonald's or a manager at a financing firm. You have so much impact on the people you come in contact with. And if you're a negative person spreading negativity, You might spread negativity to a positive person and have a positive person spread negativity to another positive person. When the dot-com boom was happening, I think everybody thought that transformation was going to happen overnight. And, you know, in the last few years, we've seen quite a few big retailers close their doors for good or close massive doors. And I think there's a combination of people like the convenience of online and willing to pay a little bit of premium. But also, depending on where you go, you might not get a great experience. And I remember some of the most fun I had was growing up at Toys R Us as a part-timer and getting to like unlock those kids' joy when we were able to find that one-of-a-kind Batman or Superman toy, that one variant for a child that was really excited. But you can still have a positive impact through leadership. And I think leaders in our society, whether you're leading a team of 5 people or 5,000 people, you have some of the biggest impact on how people can show up for others. Thank you for getting this far if you have. If you got this far in today's video, we'd love to hear your favorite part, if there's anything that resonated with you. Know a leader that could benefit from this? Please share it. This is about spreading positive impact. And again, whether it's one person or 500 people, we're going to continue to do it until we can't. If you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe. This is Jimmy Williams signing off, and I'll see y'all soon.